Welcome to Houston Baptist University's Psych 4326, The Psychology of Death and Dying. Reminder, these presentations are only intended to highlight some important or difficult points from the chapter. They are in no way comprehensive and do not include all the material that students will be held responsible for on exams. You are expected to completely and thoroughly engage with all of the required learning materials. Exams in this course may include questions taken from textbook readings, videos, and PowerPoint presentations. This presentation covers some important topics from Chapter 9 in our textbook. Make sure you read all the chapter and take notes. There is much more material in the chapter than we are covering in this presentation. In the textbook, it quotes C.S. Lewis. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. You may or may not have experienced the loss of someone who you cared for deeply. The pain we experience is a result of having first loved and then lost. Even the loss of our pets can cause great pain and sorrow. The term bereavement refers to being deprived of something. Three elements are essential in all bereavement: a relationship or attachment with someone or something that is valued, the loss, which is an ending, termination, or separation of that relationship, and an individual who is deprived of that valued person or thing by the loss. Grief is the term that indicates one's reactions to the loss. The word grief signifies one's reactions, both internally and externally, to the impact of the loss. To not experience grief for a significant loss would be abnormal and would mean there was no real attachment prior to the loss. Grief can be experienced and expressed in a variety of ways, including physical sensations like tightening in the chest, aching arms, lump in the throat, shortness of breath, oversensitivity to noise, or hollowness in the stomach. Could also be feelings such as sadness, anger, guilt, self-reproach, anxiety, loneliness, fatigue, shock, yearning, numbness, and so on. Could also experience thoughts such as disbelief, confusion, preoccupation, a sense of the presence of the deceased, paranormal experiences, and dreams of the deceased. Behaviors such as sleep or appetite disturbances, absent-mindedness, loss of interest in activities previously enjoyed, crying, avoiding any reminder of the deceased, calling out and searching, sighing, restlessness, and so on. Also, social difficulties in interpersonal relationships or problems functioning within an organization or social group. And lastly, spiritual searching for a sense of meaning, hostility towards God or higher power, and so on. There are 5 critical variables that can influence one's experience of bereavement and grief: the nature of the prior attachment. The full importance of the relationship may not be appreciated until it's over. Special difficulties may be associated with the death of the person when the relationship with that person involved abuse, mistreatment, violence, or ambivalent feelings. The way the loss takes place. Some losses can be foreseen and predicted, others cannot. Some losses occur gradually and allow you time for preparation, while others are drawn out and difficult. Some losses are untimely and outside of what could be considered the norm. These deaths that are off time are likely to be the most difficult. The coping strategies of the bereaved person. Prior loss can teach us coping strategies. If we have to develop coping strategies, this requires more time and energy and can make the grief more difficult. Also, the developmental situation of the bereaved person. Children grieve differently than older people do. And lastly, the nature of support available. The availability of family, friends, and social institutes can be very helpful, and a lack of such support can make the grieving process especially difficult. In Chapter 6, we learned about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages for those facing dying. There are several theories about stages of grief as well. The textbook presents several models for dealing with grief and mourning. Here we see Worden's model. Worden's recommended that we think of mourning in terms of tasks and not stages. The 4 tasks he proposed are 1. Accepting the reality of the loss, 2. Processing the pain, 3. Adjusting to the world without the deceased person, and 4. Finding an enduring connection with the deceased person while embarking on a new life. Another model explained in the textbook is the dual process model. The dual process model argues for an oscillation or going back and forth between the 2 sets of coping processes. On the one side is loss-oriented and primarily concerned with coping with the loss. On the other side is restoration-oriented and concerned primarily with coping with restoration, moving on in life. This model assumes that bereaved persons will shift back and forth from focusing on loss to focusing on the future. This model also acknowledges that coping with bereavement may differ from one cultural group to another and from one individual to another, and in time from one moment to another. Make sure you read Chapter 9 thoroughly and understand the terms you find on page 252 and 253. There's so much more than we're covering in this presentation. See you in Chapter 10.